into another edition of Bet. I'm Anita Marks, your host. We've got a great show lined up for you like we do each and every 2 to 3 days out of the week. Nick Friedell is going to join us. We'll play a little reaction or no action. We'll talk some NBA. Also, getting you ready. I know it's 2 weeks away, but getting you ready for the big Super Bowl matchup between the Eagles and the Kansas City Chiefs. So Tim McManus and Adam Teicher are going to join us. And also, we'll be visited by Erin Dolan. As we know, she's a huge Eagles fan. So we'll talk about her Eagles and what she expects and what her anticipation is for them to face the Kansas City Chiefs in the Super Bowl as well. But let's bring in Nick. Nick, welcome in. I have to forewarn you, I am battling something today, so if I get through this show in 30 minutes without hacking up a lung on live digital, it will be a miracle. So buckle up, buddy. Brace yourself.
You're a pro's pro, Anita. You'll make it.
I hope so. All right, let's dive into it. As you know, it's reaction or no action. 4 or more first half touchdowns will be scored in the Super Bowl. And by the way, you can get that at plus 170. Do you hear?
Give me a reaction here, Anita, and here's why. I think with 2 weeks, you get Patty Mahomes, all the ankle rehab that he can handle. You get Hurts running around in that Philly offense that got slowed a little bit, at least early against San Francisco, and then found its rhythm. These two guys can make a lot of stuff happen on the field. I'm expecting fireworks. Let's roll the dice and see what happens early.
See, I'm on the opposite side here, Nick. I'm going no action. Why? Defense wins championships. And we're seeing two of the best defenses and defensive lines and defensive pass rushers in Hassan Reddick and Chris Jones getting after two quarterbacks that aren't healthy. Hurts is dealing with a shoulder. The last 2 games, he's looked like a shell of himself, even though, of course, the Eagles were able to beat the 49ers. And Patrick Mahomes is coming in with that ankle injury. It's going to take more than 2 weeks for that to heal. So I think the defense is really going to get after these quarterbacks. So I'm saying no action here. All right, here we go. Number 2, and this is more your alley, and that is Russell Westbrook. Finally this season, comfortable in that 6th man role. Does he win 6th man of the year? Now it's minus 125. No longer is it plus money. Reaction or no action?
No action here, Anita. I know Russ has found a nice niche, and I know all the Laker fans are saying, see, we can make it work. It could happen. It's Russell Westbrook, and it's even more the Lakers. I don't expect this Lakers team to do anything in the second half. I think it's going to be a lot tougher to give him this kind of award if this team is sliding all the way out and back out of the play-in a few months. I would still lean towards, or at least put a couple bucks on Brogdon in Boston. That team is legit. He is a focal point, and I think he can be that guy in the second half that really makes it tough.
I hear you, Brogdon, Poole. I hear you. There's some money flowing their way, but I'm going reaction here. Now, I understand Westbrook, he's only been averaging 14.6 rebounds, 7 assists a game. Majority of players who've won this award have been well over 16 points a game. However, his last 10 games, he's actually averaging 21 points, 7 rebounds, 7 assists a game. This is a Lakers team. They're hovering around 13. I think they're going to make a strong push for it to try to get into the playoffs and not by a play-in game situation. So I'm going reaction here. Also, keep in mind, Christian Wood, now since he's starting, he's going to be ineligible, right, for that 6th man award. So I think it's even more likely now that Westbrook does win it, especially with, so much drama to start the season about him accepting the role. And sure enough, he did, and it's been successful for him. Question number 3, Eastern Conference team, an Eastern Conference team wins the NBA title. And you could get that at minus 135. There's some juice on that bad boy. Reaction or no action?
This is such a major reaction, Anita. This is exactly why I don't do anything on the NBA gambling-wise. Because I think I would take every dollar that I have in my apartment, which is not much, clearly, but I would dump it all on this one because I think Boston and Milwaukee are just a cut above everybody else. So I would not hesitate on this one in any way because I think if they are ready to roll when the time comes, they're healthy and they have the stars with Giannis in Milwaukee and Tatum in Boston. Those two teams, whoever wins the East is going to win this whole thing.
Yeah, I've got reaction here as well. Boston has finally, they started hot, kind of dwindled down a little bit. It looks like they've turned that corner. Of course, you've got the Nets expected to get KD back. The Bucks, are going to be in it. And I'm really intrigued to see what the Heat and the Cavs do as we get closer to the trade deadline. So reaction there for me. With all due respect to the West, I feel the true competition is in the East. With that being said, let's break down this Lakers-Nets preview for tonight. Two, of course, teams going at it. So the Nets knew they would be without KD for a good month, a good few weeks. And so his absence, they've lost 6 of their last 9 games. Just shows you how important he is, of course, to the success of that team. Is there an update? Can you fill us in? When can we expect KD back on the court for Brooklyn?
Anita, we still don't know for sure. It sounds like it'll be at least another week and a half or 2. Kevin has started to show up at these games. He's around more, which is always a good sign that he started to do more in practice. But the Nets have been very hesitant, as they should be, because the last thing you want to do is rush Kevin Durant back, and then he gets hurt again, and then your season's completely over. So I know they were optimistic that this would be around a month. It feels like it's going to stretch a little bit longer, maybe into the All-Star break, to give them a whole nother week to rest. But they are being overly cautious in the moment, and nobody is pushing for any kind of return soon, especially given the way that Kyrie Irving has played.
Well, some good news for the Nets tonight because LeBron and AD, they're out against the Nets. With that being said, LeBron is 117 points away from, of course, that surpassing Kareem with that point total. So if you do the math in regard to what he's averaging a game and how many games we anticipate him to play, chances are that he's going to surpass that point total on February 9th against the Bucks. And of course, for those that are a little bit older than most, know that the Bucks, of course, drafted Kareem. So that would be a really unique game and unique opponent to break that record with. With that being said, what's LeBron saying about this record and when he thinks eventually he will surpass?
Anita, the most impressive thing to me about how LeBron has handled all this is that he said, hey, I'm not thinking about it at all, because in not being able to think about it or go through that every night, that's helped me get to this point. That's been very important for him as he tries to make his way through this next mark. I don't think there's any question that this needs a great deal to him, and he is going to break down even more than what we saw in Boston the other night at the end of that game, legitimately, emotionally, when it does happen. But the reason that he's been successful is that he's been able to block out the distractions that may come his way. It scares me, though, if you're the Lakers, once this record finally gets set and he breaks it, Anita, how motivated are they going to be down the stretch of the season if they keep losing games?
Well, let's talk about the game. The Nets, they are favored by 9. The over-under is 230. How are you playing it tonight?
Give me the over. I have watched this Nets team. When they go down a few players, there's been a couple games before Kevin got hurt where everybody sat. That game in Indiana a couple months ago. Anita, it has all the feel of an open gym. Like the Vegas Summer League. They just run up and down, and Kyrie's going to get a zillion different shots, and players that we haven't heard from much all season are going to come in looking to score. So if it's me, I am taking the over, believing the defense will be very optional tonight, and the Nets will find a way to win, just not touching the points, because you never know when you take stars off the floor what kind of intensity there will be for everybody else.
Yeah, so I understand you're over. And by the way, I do like Kyrie over 30.5 points. He's averaging 36 points a game and 35% usage rate as well. However, this is how I'm playing it. I like the Lakers getting the points here. Why? The Nets still no KD, as we've said. Also, they're coming off a really big game against the Knicks, and they take on Boston on Wednesday. Could this be a look ahead where maybe, as we know, the Nets 1-5 against the spread their last 6 games, against teams that are below 500. They play to the level of the teams that they are playing. So I do like the Lakers getting the points here at 9. I do believe the Nets win, but I do believe the Lakers cover. And you mentioned that game against Boston. Of course, Boston won in overtime. We saw LeBron's reaction. Nick, the NBA came out, right, and said, like, we were wrong. That was a really bad call. So I'm really curious how the refs are going to officiate this game tonight. Is it going to favor the Lakers a little bit more because the NBA knows they got that game wrong? So I do like the Lakers getting the points.
A makeup whistle is on the way, Anita. And the Nets just lost to the Pistons. So you know that anything's possible for them.
Exactly. I didn't know you were into bowling. I average about a 185. You and I have got to hit up the bowling lanes in Brooklyn one night, Nick. Thanks for joining us here on Bet. Appreciate it.
Always great to be with you, and I look forward to it.
You got it. All right, we turn our attention. We go from the hardwood to the gridiron, right? And we're breaking down for you the Super Bowl matchup. Let's start in Philadelphia. Tim McManus joining us. Man, you are one busy man, and it's going to continue for the next 2 weeks as the Eagles, as we know, they advance to the Super Bowl. But their path to the Super Bowl hasn't been as difficult, right? They beat the Giants by 31 points. Then they go up against the 49ers. They lose their, third and fourth string quarterback in the game. What have you heard from the Eagles players regarding the Chiefs and the challenge that they will face now going up against Mahomes in that Chiefs offense?
Yeah, Anita, they know that it's a stiff competition that they're going to be facing in the Super Bowl, and Patrick Mahomes, a lot different than Daniel Jones and Brock Purdy and Josh Johnson, and I think everybody recognizes that. But the Eagles feel well equipped for any challenge that's in front of them defensively. If you look at the way that they're getting after quarterbacks, 7 sacks in the regular season is not only the most this season, but also third most in NFL history, led by Hassan Reddick, who has, just continued his menacing ways in the postseason, carrying over what was a very productive Defensive Player of the Year worthy performance during the regular season. And so, Mahomes, he's magical. Everybody knows it, even if he is slowed a little bit down by injury right now. And so they know that they're going to have to be on it, but feel like their defensive front remains a strength against any opponent they play. And, that'll be, once again, the key to their success.
As we know, Jalen Hurts, that shoulder, still not 100%. He came out post-game and said that it is not, but, they are where they are, and he's got to, bite the bullet and power through. How does he feel after yesterday's game? Because the 49ers were able to get to him where the Giants were not.
Yeah, as he said earlier in the week, I've been better. So that gives you an indication that he's not at 100%. And chances are, there's just one more game remaining that he's not going to get there, by Super Bowl 52 and by 57. I'm back in the 2017 season all of a sudden with Philly back here. But yeah, so I don't think he's going to be all the way back. You saw that he was able to function at a pretty high level against the Giants in the divisional round. This past week against San Francisco, it wasn't quite as good through the air or on the ground. How much of that is you're going up against an incredibly stout San Francisco defense versus how much the injury is impacting him? I think maybe somewhere in between lies the truth. But I think the good news from Philadelphia's standpoint is that it's been 6 weeks now since he originally suffered that SC joint sprain in his right shoulder. By the time it gets around to the Super Bowl, it's going to be essentially 2 months. So that's a decent amount of time for that to heal, and he'll probably be feeling the best that he has since suffering that injury when he takes the field in Glendale.
Tim, you've got Andy Reid on one side of the field coaching against his former team and Nick Sirianni on the other. Okay, Andy Reid, as we know, 21 postseason wins. Nick Sirianni, too. What did Nick say about taking on a team in the Super Bowl in only his second season as head coach of the Eagles?
Yeah, he called it a dream come true. And that was the way that he started his address to his players in the locker room after beating the Niners yesterday, saying whether it's been a dream of yours since you were a kid or if it started in high school or just when you got to the pros, everybody has a dream of going to the Super Bowl representing your city on the biggest stage. And so, yeah, he was feeling all the emotions that you would expect a head coach early in his head coaching career to feel. But he's been really good about locking players in to the moment. And even though there certainly was a celebration out on the stage at Lincoln Financial Field last night and into the locker room, they lock right back in because they kept saying and repeating, one more. The job is not done yet. And that's really reflected by Jalen Hurts as well. One thing that I found interesting in the locker room yesterday, Anita, is everybody was wearing their conference championship T-shirts. And Hurts was when he was celebrating on the podium, but as soon as he got back inside of the locker room, that thing was off. I think that kind of represents the mentality of this team of, okay, we've kind of scratched that off the list, but we're not done yet. And that was a message that both Hurts and Sirianni were conveying to the team after that win.
Tim, just out of curiosity, I was watching some video from a Philadelphia news station last night, and I could have sworn I saw you on one of the light poles. They were greased, but Philadelphia was still attacking those. Were you out there? Was that you, man?
Well, the grease poles, Anita, are not going to stop me. I think that's one thing we've made clear over the years. So, yeah, I cannot confirm nor deny that was me up on one of those poles.
Tim, thank you so much. I'm sure we'll be seeing a lot more of you on Bet in the next 2 weeks. Really do appreciate it. We take you from Philadelphia. We go to Kansas City. Adam Teicher is joining us now. So, Adam, let's dive right into, I think, one of the biggest storylines, right? And first of all, congratulations on your third Super Bowl in 4 seasons. Must be fun covering a team that's just that good. But Andy Reid, going up against his former team, he's with the Eagles for 14 seasons. And what has he said about the fact that he is facing the Eagles in the Super Bowl?
He has not said a lot yet, but I think he's enjoying the prospect of going up against the Eagles. It's been 10 years since he left, and he left on good terms. He's still friendly with Jeff Lurie, the Eagles owner, and some of the people left in the organization. So I think he's relishing this, and we'll see some people maybe he hasn't seen in a long time. So I think if you would ask Andy Reid in his heart of hearts, hey, do you want to play Philadelphia or not in the Super Bowl? He would have said, yeah, let's go ahead and do this. I think it'll be a fun game. So I think he's looking forward to this, no doubt.
Another big storyline will be the Kelce brothers, right? They've got a phenomenal podcast. I love listening to it. But now you've got them facing off against one another in the Super Bowl. What has Travis Kelce said about going up against his brother? They obviously are pretty tight.
Yeah, it's interesting, Anita. He got a little bit emotional last night when he started talking about playing against his brother Jason in the Super Bowl. Now, they've played against each other twice during the regular season, once in Kansas City, once in Philadelphia, but never on a stage this big, and I think that thought really got to him. I think he'd sort of had tunnel vision before the game, was just trying to concentrate on winning, and then it all of a sudden really hit him that he's going to be out on the same field with his big brother, and no doubt something he's relishing as well.
It will be special, I'm sure, for their parents as well. I'm wearing a Patrick Mahomes t-shirt today because I'm eating crow. I underestimated what a superhero performance he put up yesterday against Cincinnati. But we saw him hobbled at the end of the game. I mean, that was his ankle was re-injured, aggravated. What's the game plan for the next 2 weeks when it comes to Patrick Mahomes in Kansas City, getting him ready to face a very aggressive?
And it sure looks like he gave back whatever gains he might have made last week with the ankle. He might have given them back during the game last night. But the Chiefs did get the win, so he'll be ready to go in 2 weeks. He's going to work out. Even after the original injury against Jacksonville a couple of weeks ago, there was video out of him working out barefoot in a Kansas City area gym, trying to exercise that ankle. So I'm not sure that just sitting there and propping it up and icing it is just all the best, exclusively is the best thing to do. So he might be moving around on it a little bit. But the Chiefs were encouraged from where he was immediately after the injury to where he was for the game yesterday. And now that'll be doubled with the 2-week break between this game and the Super Bowl. So they feel like Mahomes will be probably in a pretty good place by the time they get to the Super Bowl.
Fantastic. Adam, thank you so much. Again, just like Tim, I'm sure we're going to be seeing a lot of you in the next 2 weeks. Buckle up, man. Get ready. You're probably used to. You're used to it.
But you will not see me on top of any light poles. That's my story, and I'm sticking to it.
I believe you. I believe you. Adam, thank you so much. Let's bring in Erin Dolan. Erin, congratulations. Your Eagles, Joe Fortenbaugh, you guys must be thrilled, through the roof, to the moon.
Yeah.
The Eagles are back. I know, they're back in the Super Bowl. Let's break it down. So the line is out right now. Philadelphia is favored by 2. The over-under is 49.5. So a few questions for you. Number one, who do you give the quarterback edge to in 2 weeks?
Yeah, well, first off, very excited to see the Eagles be going back to the Super Bowl. I remember when I watched them win the Super Bowl, which was one of the best moments of my life. In the parade, it was a whole shebang. I can't even show you the photos from that parade because I probably get in trouble from them with the signs that we had made because obviously Nick Foles was under center. You can only imagine the signs that we had had. But nonetheless, in terms of this Super Bowl and who has the quarterback edge, look, both these quarterbacks are banged up. So everyone's thinking, okay, well, Patrick Mahomes with that ankle, he has 2 weeks. Well, so does Jalen Hurts. And I just believe overall, Jalen Hurts is going to have the edge in this one. Of course, when it comes to the weapons that he has, because the Chiefs, a couple of their wide receivers had gone down in last game. But as for Patrick Mahomes, he has the edge in experience. But if you had to break it down on who probably has the edge here, I would say Jalen Hurts based on everything that the Eagles have on offense and defense as a quarterback right now.
Yeah, I'm with you. I do believe that Hurts has the edge here, and because he's got such a phenomenal offensive line. And again, I'm wearing a Mahomes shirt today because the heroics we saw last night against Cincinnati. They were coming in, they were trying to get after him. Some of the passes he was throwing on his back foot were just unbelievable, but I do give Hurts, even though, as you said, right, like one's dealing with a shoulder issue, the other one's dealing with the ankle. But I do give Hurts the edge here because, again, I feel like the Eagles' offensive line, think about it, Erin, they scored 4 rushing touchdowns against the NFL's best rushing defense. It just and when you saw those runs and the blocking assignments with the offensive line, it was really unbelievable. Question number 2, offenses. Overall, as we know, they're very high-powered. Do we think that this line gets to 50?
Yes, I do. I mean, if you were tracking some of these lines last night when they opened up on some of the other major sports books before they opened up on Caesars, it was actually Kansas City when I first had seen the line. It was on FanDuel. It was Kansas City -1.5, and that total was 49.5. And I was watching it bounce up and down back from 49.5 to 50. I know it already did on some of the books touch 50, so I do believe at some point again it will. But keep in mind, the Eagles, they're averaging the most points per game so far in the postseason with an average of 35 per game. Meanwhile, they're holding opponents to a league best so far in this postseason to 7 points. Now, of course, we saw what happened with the 49ers. They played without a quarterback, okay? So, I mean, that's a tough one to gauge. And then for the Giants, we knew they were going to be exposed, so the Eagles really are blowing out teams. I don't think they're going to blow out the Kansas City Chiefs by any means, but I do think with 2 high-powered offenses, knowing that they could go into a shootout, I wouldn't be surprised if this hits 50 whatsoever. So I do expect it to go back up to 50 at some point. But then again, I will say the totals that were posted for the NFC Championship game as well as the AFC Championship game, they slightly started to come down towards kickoff. Now, we have 2 weeks to prepare for this game. So I do feel like the lines will kind of be up and down, but it's not going to be huge, drastic swings. I don't think we're going to see what we saw with the AFC Championship line with the Bengals and the Chiefs. I mean, that thing was swinging around like crazy all week. But nonetheless, I do expect that it will hit 50 on some of the books at some point.
I'm actually going the opposite direction here, Erin. I'm a true believer defense wins championships. And you see what Hassan Reddick has been able to do to opposing quarterbacks. And you saw yesterday what Chris Jones has been able to do. 2 sacks, 5 quarterback hits, rattled one of arguably the best quarterbacks in the NFL in Joe Burrow yesterday. So, and not to mention both defensive coordinators for Kansas City and the Philadelphia Eagles have been exceptional this year. So I'm actually going to go under here. I think defense wins this championship. So, and last but not least, let me ask you this. What do you feel the X factor will be in this game?
Well, this is a tough one. I mean, I really have to deep dive into a lot of these player matchups and things like that. But you had mentioned the defense. I do think that Chris Jones for the Chiefs, if he's able to, you just mentioned, rattle a player like Joe Burrow, if he is able to rattle Jalen Hurts. And unfortunately, let's say Jalen Hurts makes a lot of mistakes and he's throwing interceptions, fumbles, things like that, then yeah, I do think that the Chiefs defense could really be the X factor. But then on offense for the Eagles, we talked about the multitude of weapons that they have. And let's be honest, the Chiefs defense is not as good as the 49ers defense, especially against the pass. Now, yesterday, I had thought that A.J. Brown would have a big game because I thought the Eagles would lean on the pass, but they went up by so many points that they ran the ball in the second half. We could talk about player props all day, but it felt like a lot of players that were expected to hit over their player props yesterday for the Eagles game went under. But I think in this one of the X factors could be Devonta Smith, for example. If you look back to the last 9 games, A.J. Brown, his targets are 8.8 targets per game, 85 receiving yards, while you got Devonta Smith, who he's averaged 8.8 targets and 82 receiving yards. So those two have been kind of neck and neck in terms of some of their stats. So if, let's say, A.J. Brown's covered really well, then you could always turn to a player like Devonta Smith. But as we know, Jalen Hurts, I mean, this guy, he could run it himself. He had 1 rushing touchdown yesterday, of course, too, and took off on the ground. So I do think that Chris Jones for the Chiefs could come up big, and then Devonta Smith for the Eagles.
Yeah, I'll go back again. I think defense wins championships. I think the X factor here is going to be Hassan Reddick getting in there. The Kansas City Chiefs offensive line nowhere close to the Philadelphia Eagles offensive line. I think he's going to get in there and really get after Patrick Mahomes. And I think Chris Jones, obviously, he's just been a monster in the postseason. And for him to get in and possibly rough up Jalen Hurts, I think it's really going to come down to the defense, the front 7, the pass rush, and whoever can get to each other's quarterback the most. I think that's, to me, that's the X factor. Erin, thank you so much. Again, let me ask: Are you going to the game? Like, do you plans to go to the Super Bowl? Like, are you already making plans?
I wish I was
not,
going to the Super Bowl.
Watch it?
Well, I'm going to be up in Connecticut for the morning of the Super Bowl, so I'll have to do some shows there, but then I'm going to drive right to Philadelphia. My friends and I right now are trying to figure out where we are going because we need to be close to Broad Street so that we can go out on Broad Street, because last time that I watched the Super Bowl, I watched with my dad, and it was great. He was so excited. It was one of the best memories ever, but I already have that stored away with my dad, so now I can watch this Super Bowl with my friends, celebrate in Philadelphia. I might have to bring some pepper spray, some knives, something with me because it gets absolutely out of control. And the videos that I saw last night of people jumping on the poles, people falling through those things where you're waiting for the bus, I don't know what they're called. I mean, it was an absolute, it was crazy. It was crazy to say the least. So I'm going to try to find a bar and be close to Broad.
I think they're called bus stops, but it's all good. Erin, enjoy.
No. What are the things called? You know what I'm talking about? That you wait under.
Yeah, where they were on the top.
Yeah, they have to have a name. It can't just be bus stop.
I don't know. Erin, we'll see you on Daily Wager later on tonight, right? 6 o'clock?
Yes, we will.
Okay, we'll see you there. As always, we like to end bet with before I let you go, and I've got 2 plays for you. First and foremost, I love Baylor tonight, getting the 4 points. They've won 6 straight. They're one of the hottest teams in college basketball right now. They had a great comeback against Arkansas. They've beaten Texas 12 out of their last 13 times. Second best offense in college basketball. Great second chance shots. They're aggressive on the offensive boards. Meanwhile, Texas coming off a very disappointing loss to Tennessee by 11 points. Their offense ranked 10th in college basketball, and they're outside the 200th ranking in three-point percentage. So I love Baylor getting the points. And let's talk about Pebble Beach. They tee off on Thursday. What are the metrics needed to win there? Well, greens in regulation. The last 16 winners that finished in the top 5 in greens in regulation. Also, it's a links course. You need somebody who can play as well in the wind and course experience. Very few times is there a first-time winner. So who do I like? I like Fitzpatrick to win, and you could get that at 10-1. Why? Tied for 6th here last year, tied for 7th in greens in regulation this season, and also 19th in putting. I'm also going to play Hoagie to finish in the top 5 at plus 450. Why? Well, he won at Pebble last year. Also this season, 16th in greens in regulation, 1st in strokes gained on approach, and 2nd in proximity. So those are my plays for the Pebble Beach, of course, coming your way, teeing off on Thursday. I want to thank all our guests, and thank you so much for tuning in to Bet. We'll have all your Super Bowl coverage for the next 2 weeks to get you ready for the big match. Have a great night, everybody.